This is the basic view that you would see coming into Atlanta from I-75/85, coming up from the south. So this is what I saw when I was leaving Pensacola and coming to Atlanta, coming off the 6-lane highway. The year was 1990. These were the first apartments I moved into when I moved to Atlanta in 1990. I'm gonna go see if I can find the apartment that I lived in. That was the apartment I lived in. There's a picture of me in my book, The Face of Me, with me standing on this balcony in a red pair of shorts. And that was me at the age of 25. Our Lady of Perpetual Help Home. I used to work here in 1990. This was the very first job I got when I set foot in Atlanta. It's a hospice. You can read about it in my book, The Face of Me. A lot of memories at this job. It was this spot right here behind this statue thing. I sat down right here. This is the view I was looking at as I sat here. This is the spot where I knew I was gonna collapse and not make it. I sat right here knowing this is my end. The day before, I had a very, very serious energy attack. And it crippled me for 3 days. And that second day, I did some walking. And I could only walk about, at the most, 30 yards or so before I would have to stop. And I was hobbling my way from Grant Park. And this is as far as I could make it before I just knew I was gonna die. I thought this was gonna be it. I wasn't afraid. I just sat here and just waited. I just knew I was gonna collapse. I waited and I sat here, right there, behind that pole. Eventually, I began to get my strength back and my wheels started coming back. And I got up. I don't know how long I sat here, but I got up, start back walking in this direction. walked and I walked. Obviously I didn't die, I made it. But this is one of those events that was quite scary. It was during the beginning of my suffering when I was haunted the most. You can read about this in Becoming Kylo under the crises. Hello, this is Kylo. I want to share with you an article I wrote last year in 24 called The Paper, and it's a summary of things that I'm going to accomplish on this leg of my journey. It's a vision that came to me from a much higher place than my own conscious. It's a fantastic vision of optimism, and I wanted to put it out to the public, and I wanted to share it. I wanted you all to see where I'm going as you and I both watch together the unfolding of Kylo Mims and The Paper. Go down to the descriptions and click on the tab that has the 3 pointers. It's free and it's called The Paper. This is the street leading up to what used to be some old hotel property that they turned into efficiencies. I moved in here after I left Pepper Tree Apartments. And I always remembered this street here. It looked like, and it always reminded me of a long driveway because it leads down deep off the highway, off everything where nothing's at. And here it is, there's these old hotel rooms that they turned into efficiency apartments. Had this little stream. And this was after I left Pepper Tree. I hadn't been down here since before 1992 when I lived down here. And as you can see, these are no longer old hotel properties, right? They busted down all the hotels that was back in here, and they put up these condominiums, these apartments, nice apartments. It didn't look like this when I lived here. It was, I think they were Motel 6 or Motel 8, whatever it was, hotels. They were like 2 stories, 2 levels, and old. And this is what it is now. But this is where I lived. It was these apartments, or not these, but this was the vicinity of the apartments that I lived. And I would leave here, and I worked directly across the street from here, directly across the street. I never walked, but it was in walking distance. As a matter of fact, I had gotten this job first before I moved in across the street. This is now a Sam's Club. It used to be a Kmart. For those of you too young to know what a Kmart is, Walmart replaced Kmart. Kmart was just another Walmart. And this is where I would cross the street and go to work. Actually, I got the job here and I went across the street, and I think I just so happened to find the hotel property, and I went right across the street and started renting out of that space over there. And I remember feeling so I remember feeling special. I was just a kid, and I felt special because I could walk to work. I thought that was a big deal, to be working and living in the same vicinity. I thought I was special. I don't know. I think it was sometime around 1992 when I moved into the Welcome House. The first time I moved into the Welcome House. This used to be a brand new piece of property. I was one of the first tenants to move into this place. And this is the courtyard. This is the front entrance to the courtyard. And I moved here right close to after when I left the last place I lived, which was, I think, over there off of Claremont Road. But anyway, I was living with my cousin before I moved here in 91, and then I came here. I found this place in 92, and I moved here again back here in 2000 something, but see, I'll get to that story later. This is the neighborhood I lived in, called the West End. I lived here from after I moved out of the Welcome House. This was the street, but that's where the street sign was. The street sign is gone. It's called Copeland. I lived off Copeland Street. This is the rooming house that I lived in. I lived in the attic of this house right here. It's been renovated has been cleaned up, and it looks like it has a residence. Residents are living here. But it was pretty tore up when I lived here. And I stayed in the attic of this house until 1996. After I left here, that is when my homeless journey started. For the first time, I was homeless from 96 to 2000 for those 4 years until I went back to Pensacola in 2000. And then I moved back into the Welcome House when I left Pensacola, and I stayed there for the second time from 2000 to 2012 is when the shit hit the fan. This 10-story hotel was once abandoned property. I was living in the West End on Copeland when me and a friend went inside of this building when it was abandoned. Drug addicts and street people lived all throughout this building. And when they was renovating it, they said they found several dead bodies in this building. But I wandered off into this building with a friend, and this is the fire escape that we went into. And it was the first time I had witnessed such an event like this. When I went inside this building, it was something else. And I was living at the West End at the time when I experienced this. Yep. It's inside of my book. Read the book, Becoming Kylo, and it's in the chapter, Claude and Me, about this 10-story abandoned hotel. When I arrived in Atlanta, I was 25 years old. I was young and eager to start a new life, but like some people at that age, I was naive. Not so much to life, but I was naive to the dark side of people. I understood the flow of life, and I was ready to dive into the waters head first. I just didn't have a big imagination in those days, but little did I suspect that people would become my stumbling block. Well, here I am, 35 years later. I weathered the storm of Hurricane Atlanta. I matured and I have grown. I tread the high tides of a spiritual journey I could not have ever anticipated. But I'm getting through it. And I'm still learning. And I'm still growing. And the journey hasn't ended.